Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to share 25 and a half different tips that'll make your life in the kitchen way easier. So you ready? Let's get into this. Okay, here we go. Ready? Limes and lemons can be really difficult to get the skins to come off cleanly, but I'm going to show you a quick tip on how to do this perfect every time. Just hold a piece of your quartered lime like this, and you want to use your fingernails here to grab in right at the edge of the pith closest to where the meat of the citrus is. And you're just going to tear off both bottoms, push them down away from you, and just kind of work your way towards the middle. You're going to see on one side you can see more pith, and on the other side you can see less pith. So you're going to take the side that obviously is less, and you're going to work the skin off in that direction to try to get as much of that pith off as you can. So just kind of work it over this way, and it comes right off nice and clean, just like that. A lot of people love cooking with garlic, but everybody hates peeling garlic. Doing it the hard way involves having to peel off the skin little by little and getting garlic under your fingernails and everything else, trying to peel it off like this. That can be really cumbersome and it takes a really long time. Instead of doing that, just take your garlic, set it down on a cutting board, take a chef knife, lay it right on top of the garlic with the blade facing away from you, and then give it a quick tap with the palm of your hand. After doing that, the skin should come off super easy. Just like that. If you're buying an induction range and you need to find out if your pans will work with it, there's a quick test you can do. Just take a magnet and try to stick it to the bottom of your pan. If it sticks like that, they'll work on your induction range. If not, unfortunately, you gotta buy new pans. If you have a slightly warped cutting board and it moves around like this, there's an easy fix. Just take a towel, get it wet, and wring it out really well. Then move your cutting board out of the way, lay down your towel, and set your cutting board directly on it. Unless your cutting board is really warped, this should fill in those gaps and make it nice and stable. It'll also keep it from sliding around too easily, making it much safer to cut on. If you want to remove the skin from ginger, you can use a potato peeler, but it has a hard time getting around these curves. The best thing you can use for that is a spoon. Just hold the spoon upside down so it's curving downward towards the ginger, and just simply scrape across. That'll remove the skin really easily, and it'll be really thin and flaky like this, really minimizing the amount of waste. Here's how you properly dice an onion. Take your onion, put it down on your cutting board, and cut it down the middle lengthwise, making sure that your fingers are curled because you don't want to cut the ends of them off. And then we want to peel off just the top dry layer. Next, set your half onion down with the flat side down, and if you have a small onion like this, we're going to cut this sideways about halfway up. You don't want to cut all the way to the top, you just want to cut near it, but you still want to keep it connected. Now we just make a whole bunch of parallel cuts, making sure you get all the way through the onion, getting up near the root but not quite to the top of it. All you have to do now is cut perpendicular, again curling your fingers over and using your knuckles as a guide. All we have to do then is chop until you're near the end, in which case you'd flip this down and just cut around the root. Now you have some nice diced onions like this, and that's all of your waste right there. Cutting tomatoes can be a real pain in the neck, and they can be a little bit dangerous. Here's an easy way to cut these. First, just cut them down the middle, like so, and then cut the stem area out at an angle, like this. At this point, cutting down through the skin this way can really just crush the tomatoes, especially if you don't have really sharp knives. A better way to dice them would just be to turn them back over and cut through the meat first and the skin last, like this. You'll get better cuts, and if you don't have the sharpest knives in the world, you don't worry about messing up your tomatoes or worse yet, cutting yourself. Do you want to make some free green onions? Well, here's a quick tip. Just go ahead and chop up your green onions the way you normally would, except when you get near the bulbs, stop. Just leave about 3 inches or so of the root section of your green onions, take a glass of cold water, set your roots in there, and leave these on your kitchen window, preferably in the sun. These will continue to grow for several weeks and keep producing onions for you. And here's what they look like after they've been in the water for about 7 days. You can extend the life further by either using hydroponic plant food, or you can plant these in a little pot. Separating egg yolks from egg whites with no tools is easy. Just crack an egg on a flat hard surface and empty the entire egg into a small bowl, being really careful not to get any shells in it. At that point, you can carefully dig the yolk out of the bowl, and just rotate it between your hands like this, letting the whites flow through your fingers, but keeping the yolk in your hand. Once you've gotten all of the egg whites into the one bowl, you can just take your yolk and stick it in the other one, and they'll be perfectly separated. There's a lot of ways to keep pasta from sticking together when you boil it, but the best way is to simply use a bigger pot. Also be sure to use a lot more water than you think you need. Being too short on water and having your pasta overcrowded are the two biggest reasons for your pasta sticking. Once you reach a rolling boil, you can throw in your pasta, and you're going to want to be sure to keep stirring this around for the first minute or so, at least until this is soft enough for the entire thing to be submerged. When the pasta first goes in is the time where it's most likely to stick together, so we want to get past that stage. After that, just leave it in for about 6 or 7 minutes depending on what type of pasta you're using. Give it a stir once in a while and you should be golden. Cleaning stainless steel pans can be a little bit of a pain. Most of the time you can scrub them pretty clean without too much of a problem, but you end up with a little bit of staining and they just don't quite have the luster that they did before. If you're having a problem like that, Barkeeper's Friend can really save the day. You just get your pan a little bit wet, sprinkle on some Barkeeper's Friend, and scrub and buff it into the surface without using anything too terribly abrasive. Then all you do is just rinse it off and dry it with a microfiber towel, and you end up with a great, shiny, beautiful pan that looks just like it did when you took it out of the box. You don't have a knife guard or a knife block? You can use a paper towel cardboard insert to protect your knife. Just take the cardboard roll, make it nice and flat, cut this a little bit past the length of your blade. Then you can just slide this over your blade and you can store it in a drawer just like this without worrying about damaging your knife. Do you ever have problems with stuff sticking to your knife while you're slicing? Like this? If so, you can take a toothpick, set it a quarter of the way up the outer side of your knife, take a little piece of tape, and tape it right in place. Now, when you cut across that, nothing will stick. Cool, huh? When you're storing your leftover ice cream in your freezer, be sure you're setting them in there with the lid facing down. The reason for that is simple. In the time it takes you to scoop your ice cream and serve it out, the very top layer will slightly melt. That melted layer stays on top of your ice cream and ices over. If you're putting your ice cream in the freezer upside down like this, all those droplets go onto the inside of the lid and they'll freeze here, not in your ice cream. And then all this stuff in here will stay perfect. Would you like to avoid stinging, watery eyes when you're cutting onions? That's easy. Just cut off the bottom and the top and peel off that dry layer. Then just take a bowl of cold water and let the onions soak in here for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you can take this out, slice it up, and you shouldn't have any problem with your eyes watering at all. Whoa. When you're trying to use a measuring spoon for something like honey that sticks a lot, it can be a pain in the neck because when you try to pour it out of there, you still have a lot that sticks in there and it throws off your measurements. If that's happening to you, just use a little bit of non-stick spray, and then you're not going to have any kinds of problems with anything sticking to the spoon. If you've ever dropped a soda can on the ground, you know that once it's shaken up, you can't open it or you're going to get stuff all over the place. There's ways to alleviate that though. So if you've got a can that's been shaken up like this and you'd like to open it without getting stuff all over the place, then you can just set it down on a counter, start tapping the sides to get all the bubbles that are attached to the sides of the inside of the can released and sent back up into the air gap at the top. Once you've done this for a little bit, you should be able to open it up without any ill effects. Just like that. By the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Stainless steel is great to cook on, but if you don't preheat it properly, it's a giant pain in the ass. To find out if it's properly preheated, you can do the mercury ball test. So heat your pan over medium heat. You probably never want it to be any higher than that anyway. Every minute or so, you're going to want to put a little bit of room temperature water into your pan and see what happens. If it just burns off like that, then your pan is not hot enough and you just got to wait a little bit longer. When your pan's properly preheated, the water won't just melt away, it'll turn into little balls like this so you can roll around in the pan. and they look a little bit like mercury balls, hence the name of the test. When you use up all your butter, people tend to throw away the butter paper. But what most people don't realize is that one butter paper like this is enough to grease probably 2 pans. So just rub it on your pan, butter side down, and you're good to go. And you can definitely see how much gets on there. Why waste it if you got it, right? If you have a recipe that calls for creme fraiche, it's not always as easy as going down to your local grocery store and getting it because it's not always there. A good substitute is heavy whipping cream and sour cream. All you have to do is whisk these together in equal portions and mix them up with either a whisk or an immersion blender. It doesn't come out quite as thick as creme fraiche, but it'll get you through in a pinch and it tastes great.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
If you're trying to get that last remaining juice out of a lemon or a lime, and you just don't have the hand strength to get all of it out of there, you can always grab a pair of tongs. Just take your fruit, put it up near the top of your tongs, turn it over, and use the leverage from the tongs to squeeze all the remaining juice out. To keep your cutting board from getting stinky, you can sprinkle a little bit of coarse salt over it and then rub it with a half a lemon. Not only does this help eliminate odors, but it also conditions your board as well. If you've got a lot of garlic to peel and you don't want to use the knife trick, you can fill a plastic container full of water, throw in all your garlic cloves, then you'll cover these up and let them sit overnight. The next morning the skins will be so soft that they basically just fall right off the garlic. It'll also work if you just let them soak for an hour or two, but the results are a lot better if you let it go overnight. See, that only took about 5 minutes. If you like to peel a bunch of hard-boiled eggs very quickly, just take a shallow plastic container, throw in your eggs, fill the container up about halfway with water, and lock on the lid. Now all you have to do is shake this around in all different directions about 30 times. Once you've done that, you can take off the lid, and the shells should just kind of fall right off. Just like that. Descaling your coffee maker not only cleans the inside, but it extends the life of your machine as well. To do that, just take your reservoir, and we're going to fill halfway up with distilled white vinegar. Fill it up the rest of the way with cold water. You can mix that up a little bit if you want to. Probably not necessary, but I like to do it anyway. Then we can close this up, put it back on our machine, and we're going to run a full cycle. Once that finishes, run one more cycle just with water to clear out all the leftover vinegar. Be sure to clean out your carafe too, otherwise you're going to end up with a really unpleasant surprise. Hopefully, at least a few of these tips taught you something new that you can apply to your own kitchen. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite one was, and if you have a special tip that we haven't talked about in this video, let me know about that too. I'm sure everybody else that watches this video would love to see that as well. If you like this video, then I bet you'll love this video right here where we show you several different ways to clean stainless steel pans. Knowing that stuff and seeing just how easy it can be can really make your experience with those so much better. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.